transmissions.
And hello, thank you for coming on the show today. We have Matthew Clark, or Matt Clark, however you prefer it. He is a political activist, an actor, and also a educator. Thank you for coming on the show today. YangGang, most importantly, that's how we met.
That's right. Yeah, Mark, super pumped to be here. Nice to see you again. We were chatting. It's been a long time.
Indeed. We were just talking about all this 5 seconds ago before I had a technical flop, you know.
I mean, what was it? It's been it's almost 8-10 months or something. Because last we spoke, it was in the waning days of the Democratic primary in New Hampshire.
Right.
We were super YangGang. I worked for the campaign. You were doing all sorts of work for me.
It was great. I had a blast. I'd never done any type of political work before that, ever. I'd never been involved in politics, really. I mean, there was, I think, a short time that, I was kind of interested in the Ron Paul kind of libertarian movement back in like 2008, I think it was. I forget. But that was about it. For the most part, I've always been just kind of out of politics, and Yang, like most people, drew me in because of the unconventional approaches, Brazilian.
Yeah, I mean, and like you were like such like a perfect for me. So like my job, for your listeners, was I was a regional organizer, and my job was to rally folks to volunteer to get the word out about Andrew. And what was like super unique is I had been obsessed with politics for years before then, but never worked in politics. But what was super unique is looking around at the folks who supported Andrew in comparison to the folks that I would see on the other campaigns. And we by far had the most eclectic and diverse group of folks, except one of the main commonalities was that we had so many folks who had been disaffected from politics and had formerly not been interested, that like this was clearly like a movement that was reaching people that were checked out of the system but should not have been,
Yeah. I think that was really like so amazing to me coming into it, and what drew me into it also was the first time that I saw him in Portsmouth at where was that? In May or something like that. It was the Portsmouth Brewery.
Okay,
Gaslight. One of the two.
Yeah.
Right? That sounds right. It was one of those
2019, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. No, this was even before I got onto him in June, so you were a month ahead of me.
Okay. So yeah, I was really blown away. I went there searching for a podcast, actually.
Oh, really?
And I mean, he blew up so quick that understandably it didn't happen. The big thing for me though going into it was just I didn't expect to be falling into knocking on doors and setting up an event to try to draw people in. I never saw that coming, and I think that was the really interesting thing, is he definitely energized at least me politically because of how genuine and unique he was. I mean, that was really what got to me, and the ideas too.
Yeah, well, it's like, it's kind of funny to talk to you now and like reminisce about Andrew, because since he's been out of the campaign or out of the race, obviously, I mean, I'm still insanely invested in politics and I'm still following things, but I haven't reminisced about the campaign, what made him special. But I just remember when I'd always been a political junkie, obsessed with politics. So like in theory, I would have been the perfect regional organizer or communications person for like Elizabeth Warren, right? Like I'm like an educated,
political science background. Yeah.
It was like that was like Warren's campaign. And that was like what a lot of the other campaigns, they always had people who were into politics because it was their community.
Yeah.
And what quickly like raised my eyebrows, and maybe why I didn't join those campaigns, is because for them it's something that they had always done, but clearly nothing big had changed if
No
you go back
wave.
several
Yeah.
decades, right?
Yeah.
So, so the folks who joined Andrew's campaign, we joined it not because it was something that we were used to doing, not because politics was our community, but because we saw real hope there. We saw real hope to real change in real people's lives. Which is why, like, folks like you and other folks who were on Andrew's campaign, like, what was so unrecognizable to journalists and to other organizers was like, whoa, where are these people coming from? Like,
Yeah.
why? And it's like they're here because they clearly care about their lives and they think Andrew actually might be able to change things. And the only other candidate who had activated people like that in the past was obviously Bernie, right?
Right.
But
I agree. Dave, I genuinely thought, and I do blame the media a lot for this, but at the same time, look what he did, right? The issue in the campaign, if I were to just call one thing being an issue, say one thing that was a problem in the campaign was media being unfair to Yang. Had that not been the case, I think you would have seen the same type of energy that Bernie had initially. And I
yeah,
think that there was that energy and people, I mean, fervent energy. I'd say more so in a lot of ways because it did transcend, like you said, so many different ideological and political spectrums because it wasn't about what we all necessarily believe in. It's about the goal, the
yeah,
common goal.
yeah. I mean, one, Andrew was great at talking about things that are bottom line human interests. You know,
Yeah.
universal basic income would affect everybody, for example. Um, so, and it was like simple to understand, which he sort of made politics simple. And
Yes.
in theory, they could be. Um, but it was, you know, some of the things that I learned, and like again, like I would have considered myself like not a politically disaffected person
Yeah.
before Andrew. Like I was politically involved and politically interested, and most people who were in his remit were folks who were formerly disaffected. So some of the things that I learned were different than what some of his normal followers might have realized. So like things that I learned is like I'd been generally media not as media skeptical as I am now. Like I was a journalism major in college, so I had a lot of faith in lots of big news organizations. Maybe not like TV news, but I became even more skeptical of like some print journalism and certainly mainstream media. You know, I still obviously lean really left, so like you know, more favorable towards CNN and like MSNBC. But except I'm more clear now than ever before that their one driving factor is profit and not necessarily the delivery of information, right?
Right.
And if they were just delivering information, the best story in the race was this complete unknown who had somehow made it to the debate stage. Like that is like the underdog story, but that's not what.
Just an American,
Yeah,
just a guy.
yeah,
You know that
yeah,
he really, no offense to Yang. I mean, I'm not saying that like he's just a guy, but like he's just an American like anybody else in the aspect that he's not bloated rich, right? He's an entrepreneur. He's tried really hard to, work his way through American life like any other American. But the most important thing I think that sticks out is the background of his family being, an immigrant, like his family being immigrants coming here and starting the American dream, like, and it really is an amazing thing that you have somebody who is just another American. They're not a politician. They're not, a TV celebrity. Like, granted, he, worked his way through a lot of facets of entrepreneurial relationships for politics for the sake of his business, but also helping to grow entrepreneurs everywhere. But
yeah,
I don't think that there was any real strong want to be in politics, but
yeah.
he was terrified of what was going to happen,
No, I mean, like one of his best answers ever, and I know we could, literally we could talk about Andrew forever, but one of his like best answers was the reason why he ran for office is because if he didn't, he'd feel like an asshole. And he'd feel like an asshole because he saw the future that we were leaving to, the kids. And he's like, I
Yes.
need to do something about it. And it's, we all think we need to do something about it. But Andrew, he actually wouldn't categorize himself necessarily as a normal person because he has more means than other folks.
Right,
And
right.
not only
Yeah.
did he have more means, he also felt like he understood the problems enough that he saw a solution to lots of these problems. And
Right.
if he has the means, sees a solution, knows that we're going to fucking hell, and he does nothing, then he is an asshole.
Right.
So him not being invested in politics, wanting to live his life, but having these things like, oh shit, I could do it. Fuck, I got an idea that it could actually work. It would really mess up my life, but actually it's worth it in the long run. He ran. And like,
Right.
it's such an awesome answer. It's like there's this great scene in Gladiator, the Russell Crowe classic, where
Yes. Good movie.
Marcus Aurelius is like, you must be the emperor of Rome, and Gladiator, whatever the character's name is, Russell Crowe's like, I don't want to be, and then he's like, that's why it must be you. And I always sort of like would think of that when I would think of Andrew,
Yeah.
is like Andrew has not spent his entire life. He did not spend his entire life, dreaming about being president.
Right.
Um,
And
but
that's
yeah,
why
I mean,
he
like,
should be it. Right. I mean, I
yeah,
agree. Like that type of person has a more altruistic, I guess, perspective.
sure.
There's less self-serving, and I can relate to that. Like I can understand that. Like I've definitely been on the other side of it and been selfish and had some, not great tendencies as a person before. But at the same time, I think moreover, if I was in a position where I had a ton of money, like I wouldn't want to, I don't know. Like I feel like my goal would be to want to change things. Like I'd make a space company, or like it would just I think capitalism, for the sake of creating better wealth for other people, better means for other people, is really an awesome thing. And although, like, I mean, I definitely agree with what you said about him being not necessarily a normal person. He's on another class of normal people.
Yeah, I
There
mean, I still think
that is
he's the
a
most normal
spectrum.
person who has run and made it that far.
Sure, sure. But
So,
also, I mean, in his
yeah,
more elite class, like he's definitely going to be mingling with people that other people
I mean,
are
he was
not
a
going to be
successful
mingling with.
entrepreneur. He had already
Social,
met, and he had met Obama. I mean, he had been honored with all these accolades. So, I mean, he
right?
clearly was in a different class where it made it possible
Yeah,
for him to make an impact.
right.
Um, I don't know. It is kind of, it feels a little bittersweet to reminisce about this stuff because
Hmm.
like some of the things, I don't know how you've dealt with this, but like, so I destroyed myself for the campaign. I quit 2 jobs. I almost tanked my former career. I lost some significant people in my life just to like put everything I could into getting Andrew elected. And
Yeah,
then when people were like really worried about me when when he when he dropped out, and I was fine because I was so damn exhausted. I was just happy, happy
it's
to get some
done, and you can
sleep.
take a break.
Um, but speaking to other Yang folks, it it seems like it's been really hard for people to move on. It has not been for me. Like once he dropped out, I'm like, okay, he's not going to be president. All right, and I don't even know about 2024, and I don't even know if he'd be the right person then, to be completely honest.
Right.
But so I guess I'm wondering with you, and you're probably even more connected to Yang folks nowadays. How are those months of like after he dropped out? Where was your head and your heart at?
I mean, I was a little, well, I was bummed out for sure. What
Yeah,
I was worried about was exactly what was going to happen. That the DNC basically pushed in a position where they wanted Yang out, they wanted Tulsi out. All these outsiders is just not good for what
sure.
they're trying to get, the line they're trying to tell. I saw that kind of a working their way out, and all of the other people kind of fell in line behind Biden, and that was my worst case scenario. I was worried about that happening, because I was worried he couldn't win,
Mm-hmm.
actually. So we
Sure.
all know that that is now not the case. So
Yeah.
and he's
So Biden was
more,
like your last choice in theory.
absolutely. Oh no, not the last, but pretty close to last. He's not
Yeah. Okay.
anywhere on the top for me. Um,
Who were you
being
hoping after Yang dropped out? Bernie?
I no, I was just like, I just don't even give a shit anymore. I
Huh.
don't care who it is. I was more behind Joe Jorgensen than anybody, and she had not a stone chance in hell.
Yeah.
But I wasn't going to vote Libertarian, obviously, because I did I whoever it was, I
It
kind
didn't
of
work in 2016 for anybody, I think. So,
right. I voted Gary Johnson in 2016. I voted third party every election that I've ever voted in,
yeah.
like Ralph Nader and all kinds of stuff. Like I'm not the type of person that would really want to vote major party, but this election was really a big deal
This
in
is
the way
the
that
different
yeah.
fascism. Fascism was on the line.
Oh
And
my God. No, the entire
democracy itself.
collapse of of American civilization as we know it was on the line. I mean, American
Oh god.
societal collapse was very close and still,
Oh,
in
it's
my,
still there.
yeah, looming right over us like a fucking cloud.
Oh yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I mean, I I got nothing but dark predictions. I can tell you like, my emotional or intellectual journey was like I was hoping for Bernie afterwards because what Bernie's great at doing is very clearly communicating problems and ideas.
I
And
agree.
I thought, given a national platform, he might be able to eat away a bit at some of Trump's significant 40% unmovable base.
Sure.
Um, if you look at the polls in 2015,
Yeah.
uh, the top issue for Republicans and Democrats before Trump really rose and before things started to take away in the primaries was economic inequality.
Yeah.
Right? That was the top issue
So
when Trump,
that was
you know,
brought up by Bernie, though, you know?
yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. That's what I'm saying. And when Trump ran away with it, it suddenly the polls changed, and the top issue for Republicans was like immigration or something fucking stupid, some
Yeah.
bullshit, which is
Giant
bullshit
fucking
because
wall.
that's not an issue. Like it's an issue, but it's pretty low on like the threat level.
Yeah.
So Bernie was ripe to get lots of right wing, quote unquote, Trump support back in 2015 and 2016. The primaries, we don't need to go back, and that sucked, right? And he probably would have beaten Trump.
Yes.
But
Without even trying.
maybe in 2020, like they've been so his base has been so locked in that even Bernie's message and his clear and angry communication might not have reached them, but it might have, and that's what I was hoping for. But
He
I
lost a lot of people, and like, the problem is like people are so unrealistic in my opinion, and they were pissed because he backed Clinton, and they were pissed because he backed Biden, and then he loses voters because of it, and then they vote Trump. I had people that I knew that were Bernie supporters that ended up voting Trump in the main election in
I have a
2016.
lot of
A
really
lot of them.
strong opinions on people who voted for Bernie and then voted for Trump, which I can get into, but I'll drop a lot
Nope.
of F bombs. But I
Nope.
can
Go right
also
ahead. This is
about
abstract transmissions, motherfucker. You can do that
so like
all day.
I mean, what I want to talk about eventually, though, is like what my thoughts were in regards to 2020 over the past 8 months and
Oh,
how
for
I
sure.
came around to Biden.
Yeah.
I was going to vote for the Democrat no matter what. Like I
Yeah.
said, in theory, I was a fucking Warren supporter, which is about as blue as it can get. But
Yeah, for sure.
but I understand why people hate the DNC. I hate the DNC. That's great. But voting for Trump instead of voting for a Democrat.
Mind fucking boggling to me.
Well, I understand it at an emotional level. Is what you want to do is you want to say fuck you to people.
Yeah.
And he says fuck you better than Donald Trump. No, he says fuck you better than anybody else in politics.
And with a
feels
lot
really
of money.
good.
Well, a
What's
lot of
that?
fake and with a lot of fake money.
Yeah, a lot of fake money and tons of fake words. 90% of what he says is a lie. It's probably statistically true.
Yeah.
So people who are angry and upset with the DNC or with their station in life, whatever, they're gonna vote for the guy that's gonna say fuck you to the establishment. Unfortunately, his fuck you to the establishment is eventually leading to a point where it's gonna tear down the few things that might lead us to a brighter future, which is a better form of democracy. Now, the thing is, we have a shit form of democracy right now. We have what's called a first past the post system, super shit. And I mean, we're one of the earliest democratic countries out there. Our constitution is like the fucking oldest. So actually, it's not that great. There are better ones that were made after ours that learned from our mistakes. And one of our main mistakes is that we have this voting system where it's a winner take all. And that means that voting third party almost always, or voting for another party just to fuck the other one, is not going to bring you to the brighter future that might be more ideologically aligned with your goals. So progressives, super progressives who vote for Trump because they were Bernie supporters and they hate Biden or whatever, that's not going to lead you to the fucking promised land. Because the party that is the first thing that must be fixed, there's two ways to get to what you want. One of the ways, and this is I would argue with people, I was like, okay, so you want to get to what, like a better future because you want anarchy, which will eventually build up a better system. Is that what you want? And they were very hesitant ever to admit this because anarchy implies violence, and it implies a long time.
Well, I don't know sometimes, but that's a different story. We should shelf that because I think anarchy implying violence. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it implies violence. I'd say more often than not, right?
Right.
But what they were hoping is just everything to collapse. A vote for Trump is a vote for like huge collapse.
Yeah, and bomb to the system.
Yeah, and like, okay, that might happen, but it's going to be a collapse of our democratic system of what we have now. And it's also, on the meantime, we're not going to get shit done with climate change. We're not going to get shit done with economic inequality.
It could be worse than that.
What's that?
It could be way worse than that. It could be, they could be the fundamental collapse of American society in like socioeconomic, like, life as we know it would collapse, and I think that people are overlooking that entirely.
Shit lot of pain on the way to the promised land if you ever get there, right? So that's
ain't gonna happen that way.
That's one way, is to be like, let's just fucking blow the whole shit up. Well, if you blow the whole shit up, there's gonna be an explosion and you're probably gonna be in the blast radius.
It's funny, right? That's an analogy I've used a bunch of times, like for libertarians. If you want to fix a system, wouldn't you rather use a wrench and slowly dismantle it over a period of time, using Democrats like in Maine to get a third party option because of ranked choice voting? Exactly. That helps you to that process versus the bomb to the system where it's just injuring everybody in the process. It's shrapnel everywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure, man.
So the other way to the system is you vote for the party most likely to pass democracy reform, most likely to wield a wrench as opposed to a fucking bomb, right? And so you may fucking hate Biden, but the Democrats are far closer or far more considering democracy reform at a mass level than they ever have in the past. If we had won the Senate with like 52 senators, then like there was a good chance we were going to get rid of the filibuster and fucking make Puerto Rico a state, make DC a state, and then actually pass real democracy reform. Like huge fucking ranked choice all over the country. Then, bam, whoa, all of a sudden, Joe Jorgensen and all these other people that have like third-party ideas would actually become viable. But they're not going to fucking become viable if you vote for the party that wants to actually end democracy.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Or not.
Lines in the sand and getting rid of mailboxes and all that shit, man.
They are now saying publicly that we're not a democracy, we're a republic. So there's like been this like very overt creep, obviously, over the past 4 years.
To authoritarianism.
Yeah, because when you're in a party that can no longer win on your ideas, then you have to find a different way to win. And a different way to win is to disenfranchise votes.
Jack and election.
Look, I know Republicans listen to your podcast. And I got no beef with Republicans. I was raised a Republican, but the party is dying.
Yeah,
and it's dying because they're no longer running on viable ideas. They're running on resentment, isolationism. They are running on like xenophobia in a lot of ways. They're running on the clock back as opposed to turning
Like
it forward. Like,
completely. And this is my argument with
rant done.
Republicans all the time is that that the direction that they're going is very isolationist, like you're saying, nationalism, rah rah rah, American flag. I mean, American flag to me is a symbol. It's a flag. It's cloth. You know what I mean? It's made out of material. It's not super important to me. I think that the thing I struggle with Republicans a lot right now is that almost all of them are willing to just accept cognitive dissonance. They just check right out of reality.
Yeah, I mean, like when I think of America, and the flag, I think of like, high ideals. I think of equality, liberty, and I think of like a unification of an ideal future that's open to so many people. I mean, I think of the fucking Lazarus poem on the Statue of Liberty, right? Like,
Yes, that's what I was gonna say.
give me your
That's
tired
wild.
core, yearning to breathe free. I lift my light above the golden door. Like, wouldn't you rather be the country that that sort of epitomizes that,
Yeah,
like, as opposed to build a wall? Like,
agreed,
what
man.
is more beautiful? Like, have you
Agreed.
met a, a refugee that's come to America and how happy they are to be here?
I
And
agree. I mean, when you think America, I think of what you were just talking about, like Ellis Island and the Statue of Liberty. Like I think about our relationships with France and how we got that statue. You know what I mean? Like just all of these different things that we are straying away from now. I had always been very anti-American when I was younger, right? I was very rebellious in my teenage years, and still in a lot of ways, I guess I am now. But being a dad, and you get broken down as you get older, and your ideas change, and life breaks you down, and uh, but no, I mean, in a lot of ways, I see what you're saying. I mean, it's yeah. I mean, a lot of people have this idea that like the system's fucked, so fuck it. But if the system's fucked, why not try to change it? Why not try to
well,
fix it?
yeah,
Especially if
I
you have
mean,
kids.
yeah, why not try to change it? But I get it, right? Like, so,
Yeah.
like, the system's fucked, so fuck it. And that response makes sense. Like, I don't. If you vote for Trump, like, I'm sure you're a fucking great person. Like, I'm
Yeah.
sure you are in person. I do think the Democrats are really horrible at saying that, because
Terrible at it,
a lot of them,
horrifically bad at it, and it
yeah,
cost them the last election, and it's
yeah,
costing them,
and it's
relationships
stupid.
now.
Like, the thing is, like, I could go on this long rant about like the Republican Party, but I'm not. If
Sure,
you're a Republican listening to this, I'm not like bitching about you, or I don't mean to be. Because, look, I canvassed,
I am.
for
Stop being
months.
cognitively dissonant, listeners out there. Accept reality and facts. There's no such thing as alternative facts.
Yeah, there's facts, and then there's not facts.
That's it. No alternative facts is like it.
There
That
can't be two
just doesn't
realities.
fucking exist. I that drives me nuts. So yeah, I'll be the asshole to tell them, as long as they're being like
Bridge.
realistic Republicans, like my friend Steve Howland, who was on the show, he's very like with it. Even the things about Trump, like he's like, yeah, I accept certain things that other Republicans I know wouldn't say probably about it, and he can overlook some of those things. I personally could never in a million years look over some of those things. Almost all of the things.
I mean, but politics is emotional, unfortunately, and
Yes, it
you vote for
is.
the party that you relate with emotionally. And the Republican Party is much better at emotionally relating with millions and millions of working class Americans than the Democratic Party is. And and
True.
like and that's why, like, I had probably the best conversations I had when canvassing were with Republicans, because I fucking relate with Republicans really well. Democrats fucking annoy the fuck out of me. Do I agree with them ideologically? Yes. Therefore, I'm voting for their policies. But emotionally, I get the impulse to say fuck you to people, and to
Yeah.
say, this sucks, and like, I'm gonna vote for the guy that's gonna burn shit down.
But that didn't used to be
However,
their party. They used to be conservative, like,
Yeah, no. I mean,
clutch
the
my
party
pearls
changed.
Republicans. Like, what the fuck happened to
It's
that?
no longer the Ronald Reagan, George
It,
H.W. Bush
it
party.
is not. It is 20, fuck your feelings
Yeah,
Republicans, which
it's the party of owning the libs. That's your number one goal, and that's like, that's not cool.
bizarre is what it
Like
is.
it's fun to own like a snobby,
No,
overeducated,
it's fun to
full of
own a
themselves, right
Porsche, or,
Cameron's college
or a
grad.
fucking
But
Vitamix mixer or a TV. It's nice to own those things. Like, fuck,
yeah, what about next?
I do too. That they are the shit,
They're
man.
great.
So here's our free advertising for the episode. I do voluntarism ads occasionally instead of
Yeah,
real ads because I haven't fucked with it yet, and we're not big enough.
Vitamix.
So Vitamix, if you guys get a chance, check it out. It's the best goddamn blender I've ever seen. I've seen them take apart cell phones in like seconds.
Dear Vitamix sponsor Mark's podcast. I've had your Vitamix for 8 years now, and I use it every single day. I made a fabulous chocolate avocado smoothie. See, I am the lib you want to own. I make
Yeah,
smoothies out of avocados.
he's the lib that owns Vitamix. Instead,
Yeah, that's right.
he flipped it. No,
Yeah.
I get called libtard all the fucking time, all the time.
If you're a libtard, Jesus Christ,
I'm a
what am I?
libertarian tard, I guess. Oh yeah. Oh, that's
I
it.
mean,
That
let me give your
mind
listeners
blowing.
how much of a libtard I am. This is not a beer. This is kombucha in a glass because I didn't feel like drinking a beer, but I wanted to have the experience of having a nice glass. What a snobby piece of shit I am.
No. You know what? I fucking can relate the hell out of that. No, seriously. Like I would like I'll put carbonated water in my pint glasses now because I don't drink beer anymore. I try to cut it out of my diet. I'm trying to lose weight. Yeah, wicked,
You're looking pretty good.
total pretentious move.
But
Carbonated water that comes out of my refrigerator until it doesn't anymore because Samsung refrigerators fucking suck.
Samsung, we're not sponsoring you.
No, they know how I feel already. I used to work for the company for like 4 years.
Yeah, but I don't know. I forget where we were, but like I get why people vote for the Republican Party emotionally.
Yeah.
But there are two sets of ideas if you were to break it down into the party ideas. And on the basis of fact, if you want to have a more equitable system, the Democrats have a far better policy platform nowadays than the Republicans do. I understand free market and shit like that. Unfortunately, it doesn't work without some sort of government checks and balances to make sure that rules are being followed. And
Yeah.
it's kind of gone off
Sure.
the wires. But mostly like.
So I mean, I
change.
I agree. I mean, there's a lot of things that regulations fix, but I think that there's also a way that like this has always been my thought. Like when people use like insulin as an example in the free market, that like if the government doesn't step in and control insulin, then a company is going to be able to charge $15,000 a pop for it, right?
And as it does, doesn't it charge like fucking $700 or something?
It's
stupid?
nuts. It's crazy. Yeah, it goes up and down depending on how much they want to be assholes. But the government comes in and tries to control and regulate it, but still somehow it stays very, very expensive because the government can buy it expensively because the government's the one that they're trying to impact with these prices and why they're charging those prices, not the people like me and you. And I
you get money from the insurance
company? Yeah, they see government as a money bank, and they can get it by siphoning off that for expensive prices. And people like me are just collateral damage. I'm not, on insulin, but yeah,
externalized costs.
That's it. That you're right. But I think if it was a true free market, the solution would be that it would solve itself. If you had insulin, you could have 15 other companies making insulin because government's not regulating it. And all those companies are going to drive brand A's price way down because they got to compete now with 14 other guys, which doesn't exist now because you've got like 4 companies making it total.
Yeah. Well, what eventually happens, no matter what, and look, I'm not a fucking expert economist, but what
Me
happens
neither.
without any type of sort of checks and balances and regulation is
You got little kids sewing their hands
eventually
together in
businesses will monopolize.
factories.
Yeah. Eventually, there's just one. I mean, but the thing is, like, this used to be the debate that the parties were having 20 fucking years ago.
I know.
And
It's irrelevant now.
now no one's even having this debate. And now this is not like a fair economic system. We're so fucking far from it that debating the free market is like fucking boring.
It's irrelevant now. Yeah.
Find a way to quickly give people money so that they can breathe. Clearly, now my argument is clearly over the past 20 years, it's not been working because the gap between those who have stuff and those who don't keeps getting larger and larger.
Right.
I'd also say that mostly we've been like a super sort of right-wing conservative
crony corporatist. Yeah.
For the past 20 years.
Crony corporatism is fucking just destroyed everything. It's horrible. Yeah. And they call that free market capitalism so they can keep on deregulating and be dinks about it, really. Yeah, so I agree. I mean, and I think your point that there's a video, and I posted a bunch of times, the dichotomy of socialism versus capitalism. Andrew Yang said on what was it, on Fox News or something? It's irrelevant now because we're past that. And Ayn Rand, for those out there who don't know, she is, I mean, libertarian. Everybody looks to her as this holy beacon for libertarianism, but she had shit to say about AI, right? She thought those were flights of fancy. But robots were unrealistic and just bullshit. She had no concept of that. So that's the thing. Our founding forefathers, great idea to make a constitution, no concept that we'd be, having robots eventually. Like, we have to account for variations. And
Mark, let's play a little game. I've been asking this with people that I chat to. So
right.
I bought this book. It's not out yet, but I listened to a podcast with the author. It sounds amazing. It's called The Precipice by Toby Ord. And he outlines the major threats to society, okay? And he only considers the threats that are most likely to wipe out all of us. So not like 50% of humans, like 100% of humans, or like 95% of humans. So he outlines the threats that exist in the next 100 years to do that. Can you name some of the threats that he considers? There's like 6.
Near Earth objects. Like
asteroids?
Near Earth objects, yeah. Well, yes,
that's one of them. Yep. That's one of them. He says likelihood it's like a 1 in 10,000 chance that near Earth objects, well done, that people always forget that one, could wipe us out because we mostly have them mapped. Although there are some that are like roaming asteroids that don't belong to any solar system. Yeah. And that would fuck us. But it's like a 1 in 10,000 chance.
But it's still so vast and we're not paying attention. And I think that what we have mapped, quote unquote, is actually more limited than we actually think,
Yeah. Well, that's one of he thinks in the next 100 years is a 1 in 6 chance that we all die. Okay. So, and he's got some good data to back it up. So, but asteroid is one of the least likely things. Can you name something that's more likely?
I mean, I would have said pandemic, worldwide pandemic.
Yes. So there's a 1 in 30 chance that not a pandemic that evolves naturally, but a human-made pandemic.
Yes.
Is made in a lab either on purpose. It's made in the lab on purpose, neither accidentally released or nefariously released, and it kills all of us. Yeah. So 1 in 30 chance. That's the second most likely thing to kill us. There's a few other obvious ones.
Sun ejections, mass coronal ejections.
he does say something about the sun exploding, but that's like super unlikely. Another one is obviously climate change, right? It's like mass
Pole
climate
shift.
catastrophe. I don't know. He didn't get the specifics there, but it's like a 1 in 1,000 chance that climate change kills us all.
Okay,
Another
yeah.
one is nuclear war,
Yeah, I
which
figured
is
that one.
which is another 1 in 1,000 chance or something
That's a
like that.
given.
And you should be able to get the one that is most likely to kill us.
AI.
Yeah. He
That
says there's
was
a 1 in 10 chance that robots realize themselves and kill all the humans.
Yeah, well,
What's that
okay,
mean?
so a couple of things there. We should this is definitely a great conversation to have to shift from politics. I think he's absolutely right about the AI thing. That is a big deal that people are not factoring in. Like, all right, so and this is the thing that makes me the most concerned, that
Mhm.
people are just falling asleep at the wheel when it comes to like the whole unidentified aerial phenomena. People are just like, oh yeah, whatever. Like CNN has come to just say, UFOs, whatever. People are like, oh, whatever. So if we're that asleep about something that's really like, holy shit, like mind blowing, and the US government's being open about it, we're definitely going to be that way about AI. And the problem with that is that AI is something that's going to happen. It's going to slowly build up and just once it hits that point, that precipice, boom. And I think that we're at that point right now. That
Most
everything, and it's
experts
because
think
it's
it's going
not
to happen in the
just
next 50
what's that?
years. Most experts think it's going to happen in the next 50 years.
I think it's going to happen way sooner than that. I think it's going
Yeah,
to
I
happen in
mean,
the
in the
next
next 50 years,
5 years.
yeah, it could. Yeah, it very well could.
I
Yeah,
think that it's if you look at the data, it's just almost undeniable. Like we just made the Neuralink thing or whatever. Now, mice or
I
chimpanzees can
heard
move
about
the
that.
cursor with just their brain, Bluetooth.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, I mean, I'm not an AI expert.
Nuts, man,
I'm a
scary. I'm not
technological
either, but
atheist, but
oh
it's I don't know. I just think this conversation. I've been asking a lot of people about this to see if
yes.
they can get what is most likely to kill us based on this sociologist guy. He seems really sharp. Um,
So if you
so
would have asked just specifically the number one, I would have went right to AI, and mainly because
yeah, I
of
figured you would. Yeah.
Prey. Have you ever read the book Prey by Michael Crichton?
No.
For the listeners out there, in short, it's kind of a fake techno thriller, science fiction techno thriller, in which the convergence of biotechnology, nanotechnology, and artificial intelligence are the when those things converge, basically, it's done. It's not lights out for us, but either we get on board or we get left at the fucking bus stop as a species. And that's if we're allowed to get on board. you know,
Yeah.
like AI, I think that we're going to bind, if we play our cards right, we bind with it and it will be an imprint of us. And it won't happen so much as like they'll take over and kill us. It'll be either you become one with the singularity or
I mean, that sounds optimistic. I'd rather become one with the singularity. Does that
yeah.
also mean like immortality? Because that'd be cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Infinite abilities to download yourself. I think that that's a higher likelihood than it wiping us out. But humanity as we know it will end
Sounds
for sure.
nice. Yeah. As the atheist on the podcast, I don't know if you're an atheist or not, but I
Was
am. And as an atheist,
was
you don't
and I
believe there's
still
like,
kind of am, but
yeah,
it's weird. I'm like an odd agnostic atheist kind of. It's
yeah,
weird. Like I feel like there's energy exists, right?
yeah.
And
I
we
think
have a
there's a lot of things we
consciousness,
don't
so
know.
it's got to go somewhere.
Yeah, I do like that idea. Um, I'm just not holding out any hope.
Like the hive mind kind of thing, We're all
Yeah,
connected, interconnected.
yeah. Um, what else should we chat about? I was gonna tell you uh, like far earlier in the conversation, I was talking about how like 2020 I was hoping for Bernie, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then I slowly, after what happens is humans are really great at writing narratives of hope, just so they can go to bed at night not too afraid.
For
So when
sure.
Bernie came in and it was going to be Biden, um, some evidence that maybe I selectively heard, but also it was kind of like a hard narrative to beat, was that, like, honestly, he really did potentially have the biggest chance to beat Trump. And look, he did beat Trump, and he beat him with people that Bernie would have never gotten, which
It's
is
true.
he really did get all sorts of, like, Republicans on the fence to vote for him. And it shows, one, in the voting data, but also, like, look, the Republican Party is probably still holding the Senate, picked up seats in the House, and they lost the presidency, which means that people voted for Biden who are
Yeah.
Republicans and then voted for the Republicans. This would not
So
have happened with Bernie. Maybe Bernie would have, like, gotten more people out. I don't know, but I ended up coming around to the idea that Biden had the best chance of winning. So, okay, good, it was him. And then actually, what was really kind of nice, and, like, people who are listening, like, fucking Biden has the most aggressive climate plan of any presidential person ever. And
yeah.
his climate plan moved from being kind of center and fucking boring as shit to super left.
Yeah.
Um, Not quite as left as Bernie, but still pretty reasonable there. And
So I
that
I
was
think
nice.
yeah, no, I think that
It'll never pass.
he's definitely made some steps to the left, but also trying to maintain his relationships with his center right, people.
Well, Yane said it the best. He said the magic of Joe Biden is whatever he believes suddenly becomes the new reasonable. So, here's Biden during the primaries, right in the center, and the Democratic Party is, all around him. And then policy wise, he moves, I guess, depending upon what's recording, he moves more left, right? And
Yeah,
then
yeah,
the entire party shifts with him.
yeah.
That would not have happened with anyone but Biden.
I agree, and they did
That's
so in
why
a way that he could maintain the central, because he's in no
he
way,
support while moving left.
yeah, he's not a
Right.
socialist, right? And that's exactly what the Trump team wanted, was to paint him as a
Oh yeah, they
socialist.
wanted Bernie
Well,
so bad.
they wanted Bernie as yeah, they were hoping for Bernie, right? And when that didn't happen, all the narratives, everything they wrote out was set for Bernie. They thought Bernie was going to be the guy they were going to go against, and it was Biden. And they still just went with that narrative.
No.
Worst idea ever. Like, they really botched this entire campaign. Whether they had data like they did from Cambridge Analytica before or not doesn't even matter, because they just failed so bad.
One of the great lessons of life is to realize as you get older that the people that are running things are not necessarily more competent than you.
No, not at all.
They might be incompetent.
For sure.
Rudy Giuliani showing up at Four Seasons Landscaping.
Fucking A, dude. That was I felt like that was something that was written by Larry David. You know what I mean? Like, that was so hilarious to me. Like, in between a fucking crematorium and a dildo shop, and he thought it was Four Seasons. It's a fucking landscaping. So they just, try to play it off like they're trying to, help the working man. And
country.
Yeah.
These are the people running the country.
Oh, God.
You don't vote for those people.
No, I definitely wouldn't vote for that fucking maniac,
the normal
dude.
day-to-day running of the government. That's why, we're soon to have 300,000 people dead from a pandemic. When if we were in Canada, and we ran things like Canada, it would be something like 60% less deaths just by doing the normal fucking shit. I'm sorry, that's the truth. Because Trump's in charge, more people are dead.
Oh, I'm so sick of the people with the mask thing. Like, I totally can't understand why people are just like, no, masks are, are gonna take away my freedoms. It's like, what the fuck? It's just a mask. Put it on. Shut up.
Look, masks are annoying, and people who don't want to wear them, I don't care. I get why you're pissed. You're just pissed about this whole thing, and, like, liberals sucked with messaging. Trump was horrible with messaging, and we're all just fighting. And
yeah,
okay, I'm not going to deny people, period. Although I'm telling you, if you don't wear a mask, then like it is a poor decision because you might end up hurting somebody on accident.
Well, that's
But
the thing.
hey,
It's not
you're just
to
following
protect
your
you.
party, and your party is giving you the wrong information. So whatevs. I'm lucky enough that I'm
Lots
not
of
right.
bad information, though, like to a lot of people. That's so irresponsible of the Republican Party to just allow that messaging to continue.
Yeah, but they don't care. Politicians. I think politicians generally don't give a fuck. I think there's a lot more Democrats who seem to give more fucks just because their policies, I think, again, would save more lives and be better for more people. But most of them are self serving. The system needs to change, and you need to vote for the party that's most likely to change the system, to turn our representatives into what they should be, which is public fucking servants, right?
Right.
And you're going to
They're
get
not
public
that.
fucking servants when you pass democracy reform so that people actually run on their ideals, they're held accountable, less money's in politics, and then they're actually just there to do a job to help people. But right now, the system turns good humans probably into shitbags. So vote for the party that's going to change the system, which unfortunately, if you're a Republican, it's the fucking Democrats. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. And vote for the party that believes in climate change, because if you think this pandemic was bad, in the next 10 years, there's going to be some mass fucking disastrous events that are going to make this look like a fucking vacation. It's the
Yeah.
truth. And
I
if you don't believe it, you're denying reality or you have the wrong set of facts. You don't
That's
have
true.
facts, you have
Man,
fiction.
climate change is definitely on its way, but I'm kind of with Yang on this that there's not much we can do at this point. We need to find higher ground.
Well, the only
Like,
reason there's not much we can do is because people who understand the system realize we're not going to do anything. But
yeah.
we actually, there's
But it's not like
plenty.
we could fix it though. We can't turn back what they've done. Uh,
But we can avoid them. Like there's going to be catastrophe no matter what.
yeah.
But it's like this: catastrophe is fucking coming. But do we want this level of catastrophe or we want fucking this much
Right,
catastrophe? Because
right.
actually, if we just continue to do things as normal in the next 20 years, I mean, say goodbye to society
Yeah.
throughout the entire world. But if we,
Well,
deal with
I'll be honest, I
catastrophe
don't think
that's
that's even going to
coming,
matter at this point because we are at that point where we're so destructive and as a species that it's so teeter tottering right now that we're as human beings, we're not going to try to fix the problem. We're just going to try to make it harder by learning space travel and going to
I see.
Mars and all that stuff, which I don't think is a bad idea because near Earth objects are a huge deal, and having a plan B is super important, in my opinion, for the human species.
Yeah, Plan B is
Uh,
great, but like I don't
but
like. I
that shouldn't
actually,
be our end all be all.
if I think that if I'm operating under the premise that all of society's fucked, then like, what the fuck am I doing caring about anything? And so I'm not operating under the premise that all of society is fucked. I'm operating under the premise that actually people by and large are good. And they
Yeah,
are. And one of the amazing things about humanity, the reason why we're the top of the food chain is not because we're the smartest. Neanderthals were smarter than us and stronger. They had better brains. What makes us exceptional is actually human beings are wired to cooperate. And I know it doesn't seem that way because once we get into a tribe, we only want to cooperate with our tribe. If we just realize that we're actually in a tribe of the world, we can cooperate and do amazing fucking things.
hmm.
So we just need some shift, a large shift, to get us to all start to cooperate against a common threat, which is not each other.
This
It's the
goes.
things that we've done to the planet.
This actually springboards kind of backwards to what we're talking about with the collective and AI and all that stuff because, um, yeah, we need to start working together. But empathy uh, and understanding and perspective, it all I think ties into that, and we're not doing that very often. We're so worried about ourselves. So
Yeah,
I think as we start to make that connection more and more, as far as a transcendence kind of thing, we're going to bridge. We have no choice but to bridge that this dawning this technically this time frame is the age of Aquarius, and that stupid song from the 70s. I was just talking to my cousin about it on another episode.
I
The
mean, you're right.
dawning of the age of Aquarius, and at that time everything's changing. Maybe our ability to emotionally handle stuff as a species is changing too.
Well, as a species, for us to be able to tap into the thing that makes us special, our empathy, that has been limited in the new world that we have. So we need to find some way to re-unlock that
I
and live
agree.
differently and live more for each other for a common purpose. And that sounds super high and idealistic,
No,
except
it doesn't. It doesn't.
except actually just folks, humans are wired to do that. This is why when I can 100% disagree with like a Republican or somebody else on policy, if I see them in person, I'm super nice to them and they're super nice to me because actually we really, if we remove all this other shit, we actually just really want to help each other. So like everybody actually kind of just wants to help each other.
Right.
And so
Nobody
if you
wants to
keep
hurt each
that in
other.
mind, what's that?
Nobody
No,
wants to hurt each other. You see them in public, you don't want to go to war with them and scream at them, call them a libtard.
no, and actually, if you look at the data, actually, this great book was written on this, Humankind, by this Danish sociologist. I forget his name, but most wars, very few of the people who were killed in wars were killed by bullets. It was mostly bombs planted beforehand because a lot of soldiers, like, they would like not fire their guns in like World War One because they didn't want to kill somebody. It's actually really hard to kill somebody because we
Yeah.
are wired not to. We're wired to
Yeah.
be fucking puppies.
We
And
don't want to hurt each other naturally. Nobody wants to be violent if they can avoid it, I think.
no, so like I
Except for
think
some people.
some people are there are some twisted humans out there, but I think you know climate change is coming. There's huge catastrophe, but of course we can fucking do something to make it less bad, and we better. Um, Otherwise, it is going to be
Well,
really.
you say we, do you mean like us as a country or like as a species?
Well, whether we like it or not, um, America is still what the world wants to look to for leadership. And
Yeah.
the people that think that America is shit, yeah, we're shit, but we're still the best shit out
But
there.
we make
Like,
good movies and everybody wants to watch those
well,
movies.
one of the most beautiful things was like during the whole world has been staring at us and been like, what a bunch of fucking losers! What's going on with them?
Yeah.
But
It's
during
true.
like the George Floyd protests, you
Uh-huh.
know what the world was doing? They were looking at us and they were looking at these protests and they'd be like, America's the fucking shit. Like we influenced the entire. I mean that those protests that shouldn't like George Floyd shouldn't have been killed, but look
Right.
how powerful cultural movements that happen in America,
You're right.
how powerful they can be around the world. So we
Because we
are,
didn't want to accept that. We're like, fuck this.
yeah,
And
like
everybody agreed on it. All
America's
Republicans, everybody saw that video and was like, the fuck.
well, it's like so one of the best things that I've thought about this for years. Okay, I went to the Air Force Museum or the Flight Museum in like DC, and I had this really brilliant friend. She's my oldest friend, and we were looking at the fighter jets. They have like a display of the fighter jets that were in World War One or World War Two rather. And she's like, "Can you guess which jet is for which country?" And you got like this British jet, and like I'm like, "That's got to be Britain." Because it like kind of like looks official, a little sleek, but more kind of like old fashioned.
Yeah.
Then you got like the German plane, which looks like machine made, like scary. Like,
Sterile. It looks
yes,
like it was made by the Empire.
yep,
Yeah.
exactly. It looks like
Uh-huh.
it was made by the Empire. Perfectly articulated, Mark. Then you got like the Japan one, which looks. I mean, you could just tell, right?
Yeah.
It's more streamlined, and you've got the Italian one, and then the American one. It's the only one with like painting on the outside of like some big breasted girl that has like a name on it that's like,
Yeah.
some cheeky fucking thing. And it's clearly the one that has the most like fucking personality. No
Yeah.
offense to the other countries, it's just talking about the Jets, but also it's like it's like, wow, like that is so American and so different and
Yeah.
so in your face. And my friends, like, you know, a lot of people think that's why, we won. There's plenty of other reasons why we won the war, World War II or whatever. But like, that's
Right.
why we're America. That's why the world follows us.
Yeah.
And
No, I agree. I mean, this is why it's so funny. Like when we talk about the UBI and how um, it's so important to reinforce the arts and music and artists and actors, specifically movies, all this stuff, because we're like, those hobbies they're just hobbies, right? Until they're not. Like what the fuck? Because then it's like everybody wants to watch those movies. So it's like we need to do a better job reinforcing these things that we like don't care about until Michael Bay's directing it. You know what I mean? Like
sure.
it's like we value movies and music so much, but why don't we value our artists and creators so much?
Yeah, I mean,
They get
yeah,
fucked so much.
because the culture, because like,
And the rest of the world looks to us for that. And I guess that's where I was going, is that
yeah,
we're the hub of the world.
art,
People like love our movies, love our music. It
art and culture, as opposed to science and math. Science and math teach about um, making innovations and progress,
yeah, we
but art,
suck on all
culture,
those
the
fucking things,
humanities.
i.e. the metric system. Sorry, continue.
It's okay. Art, humanities, culture, they teach us how to be humans.
Yeah.
And we're still, we're the world leader economically, and we're big time the world leader culturally. So when you ask, get back to the original question, like, what can we do about climate change? Can we all come together? I mean, like, well, first things first, America should be able to fucking come together. And if America comes together, wow, I bet the world will suddenly start to kick into fucking gear because we have a huge amount of
Yeah.
influence.
Because we
So,
lead.
but like, I don't know, what can everyday people do? The most
Fucking
thing we can do is
recycle.
vote for the fucking party that believes in climate change. That's step one. Step two, start protesting. Step three, start donating to climate organizations. Step four, pull your money out of places that fund fossil fuel industries, like Chase Bank or something like that.
Yeah.
There are plenty of things that we can
The
start to
most
do.
important thing we could do is stop spreading misinformation.
Yeah, yeah. Oh God, that's gonna be hard for a lot of folks.
Yeah,
Um,
everybody just shares everything.
I know.
It's fucking
Anyway,
bananas.
how many rants have I gone on in this podcast alone?
Doesn't matter. That's what we do here, man. That's why it's called abstract transmissions. We go on these little tangents and we end up back to fucking wherever we started. And the thing that I think is great about this is me and you kind of both are very passionate about this stuff. So it's very easy to keep the conversation going, especially because of this. I mean, this is dialogue that needs to happen. We don't have to agree 100% on everything, but we need to
No,
talk about this shit because stuff is broken.
yeah, I know. I mean, like, I spend all day thinking about this shit,
Me
and
too.
it's just like thinking about it. I mean, talking about it gets us somewhere, but I, I
We
don't
need
know.
to
Like,
talk about it more
talk about it with
and
people who
think about it
disagree.
less. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard.
Well, I mean, a big thing I think would be we have to talk about it and not like so my wife's very, very far left liberal. And we met and I'm pretty left libertarian. There's not very many things I'm to the right about other than economics in some aspects. And again, not conservative because I'm terrible with money and I think money's just fuck it. We live YOLO. But that also helps economies. YOLO. YOLO with your money, help your economy. Uh, and guns. That was another thing that we didn't necessarily agree on. I'm very pro Second Amendment. I think if the government can have it, I should have it.
Yeah, I mean, I could see
I
that.
don't like the fact that the government has more power than its people. I think that it's unhealthy and it's dangerous, and it doesn't take much for it to slip into a Donald Trump authoritarianism where they're
Yeah.
slapping fucking rubber bullets directly off people's faces instead of off of surfaces first.
The
It's
unfortunate
wrong.
thing is, like, we're at a point where there is no American militia that could potential. I mean, maybe people can make an argument that there's no American militia that could rise up against the government that like the fucking U.S. Army and the government can't put down no problem. I mean, I don't know. That was
We'd have to look,
I,
if I'm not saying I would never want this scenario to happen, but if it went full fledged authoritarianism and he just decided, no, I'm going to stay president.
Yeah.
And he's just going to run shit, and he's not going to stop being president. And they have and the thin blue line protects him. And I mean, this is an extreme circumstance, and I don't think that this would happen. I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's going to go away. But in these circumstances, it almost behooves the people in those movements to save, face, I guess.
Folks who are pro-authoritarianism, not you, but most, are the ones that got all the fucking guns.
That's true.
So like,
that's why I'm like, why the fuck are liberals so like?
I mean, I know why.
Like, give the Nazis all the guns. That's what I feel like liberals are. I should say this because I am pretty liberal. I kind of encompass myself as like, I think about my wife and how pissed off she would have got when I said about this stuff. She was very much like, no, fuck that. Like, and I have that playing out in my head right now, I guess.
Well,
but it's like, why do you want to give all the guns? Her argument was yours too. There's not much we could do against a power like that. And I agree to a lot of extent, but why would you just want to be like, no, I don't want to have guns. We'll let the fucking fascist Nazi assholes have all the guns.
Well, the problem is if suddenly, the millions of liberals like me who don't have guns suddenly had them, is far more people would die. Because you're far more likely to die if you have a gun. It's a fact. You're either going to die by your own hand or there's going to be an accident. Like, the scenario of a gun saving your life is far, 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 far less likely than the scenario of the gun that you buy killing
accidentally shooting yourself.
Yeah, or shooting yourself on purpose.
No, you're right. There's a lot of people out there that are Elmer Fudd's about it and very unsafe and just illogical about it. I agree.
I mean, the problem is, like, I'm not going to attack somebody's Second Amendment right, but on the facts, again, there's only one reality. The fact is, more guns make us less safe. That's a fact. And that's why people are like, the liberals aren't even attacking Second Amendment rights even. Like, they're barely attacking them. And just be like, can we just admit that more guns make us less safe? And if we admit that more guns make us less safe, can we do things that make us more safe, even though we aren't taking away your Second Amendment right?
I don't think that more guns make us less safe. I think less education makes us less safe. I think that guns are not proven to kill more people. Like, you have a society and I don't even know the name of the country, so I'm not doing a very good job representing my side of the conversation. But a society in which everybody has a gun, they know how to train to use that gun. They've had it their entire life, but everybody in that society gets a gun. Everybody has one. It's just part of their society. It's part there, but then again, they're all. I think most of them are all enlisted into some sort of military. Thing.
I take that premise. All the people in society.
Well, this is an actual country I'm talking about.
Let's pretend.
No. This is a real country I'm talking about.
Country?
I don't know, and that's why I'm driving. I said I'm not doing a good job representing myself because I don't remember the name of the country, but I know that this country that exists somewhere in the Icelandic area. I wanted to say somewhere in Scandinavia, but I don't know. Maybe Norway or Swiss. The Swiss.
I think it's Switzerland.
That's it. That is it. And they're all just. It's part of their thing, and they're small, right? So I get there's a lot of arguments about it. My argument is that all the people are knowledgeable about weapons, so they don't have nearly as many gun deaths, problems with guns, safety issues with guns, people shooting each other, robberies, crime is incredibly low.
So you're picking a country that's not densely populated, that doesn't have economic inequality, that has healthcare, that has all these other support systems.
Oh, definitely. The healthcare is a huge piece. Yeah.
And I would bet that they still have a higher rate of suicide by gun than most countries. I guarantee you, with fewer guns, it'd be fewer deaths. It's just a
I
fact.
no, no, the suicide rate, they have far less deaths by gun than any other country.
I think I've
Again, you said
seen
per
that covers.
capita. What's that?
I think I've seen some of the stuff that covers this, which is why I would say Switzerland. But let's,
Yeah,
since
yeah, yeah,
neither of us know the stats perfectly,
yeah,
we're
yeah, yeah.
arguing based on information that we don't have.
Sure,
But the
sure.
information we do
Well,
have,
I have a couple of things I've kind of memorized, but I know it's based on a per capita basis.
mhm.
So you're right. I mean, it's a very unique kind of
Switzerland's
socioeconomic
probably a
landscape.
fairly unique case because it's already an ideal country.
Right,
But
right.
like the things that I have memorized is, for example, Australia. When Australia had a mass shooting, they had this mandatory gun buyback, and suddenly far less people were ever either killed by a gun, and their suicide rate nationally went down by like a full percentage point.
Don't you think that has a lot to do with the fact that they're very rural and that there's a lot of depression and just what's it called, a social what's the word I'm thinking
But
of? It's
still, they
people who
bought the
drank
guns back,
themselves, people that
and
drank themselves to death or kill themselves with
they bought
drugs.
the guns back, and less people died.
That's
Now,
true. Yeah.
for someone to say if more of us had guns in America, that more people would live, that's, I'm sorry.
It's
That's a,
unrealistic. I'm
yeah,
not
you know
arguing
that
that
because
point. I
you're
would
living
never
in
argue that
America,
point.
and America's fucking fucked. So you're
Well,
not going to,
America's dumb as shit. Sorry, America, but we're dumb as
America's
shit.
dumb. We don't have mental health. We don't have any of that
Yeah,
stuff.
I
So I'm not
agree. It
going
would be
to
bad for
people.
everybody to have guns, and I argue that some people shouldn't have guns.
Yeah.
I
Like,
do look. I there's some people out there that I'm just like, they're idiots. They're gonna accidentally shoot through their neighbor's fence and hit their dog. Yeah, it's just they're Elmer Fudd people out there.
yes.
And I think
Yes.
that's what people in the gun community actually
Yes.
call them, as Elmer Fudds. I don't know. I'm
Yes.
not a super gun guy, by the
So
way.
if
I
you
don't
think
I don't
that
conceal
there's,
carry or anything like that because I don't believe in well, I there's certain things like I want to respect what my wife would have wanted. She was very anti-gun, and although we disagreed very much, she's not here anymore, so I try to
and
represent her
that's,
as fairly as
that's
possible.
good of you. But you're
Hard,
saying nothing unreasonable, Mark. You're
yeah.
saying, okay, I get it. Some people shouldn't have guns. That's all the fucking Democrats are
That
saying.
I agree. That I agree. There should be some hoops you got to
You're
jump
not
through. Like
saying we're gonna
if we're
take
gonna
all
have
your guns.
licenses for cars,
It's just like the right. Unfortunately, they need to demonize and fearmonger to get more people to vote. And who is running all these ads that are saying like the Democrats going to take your guns, so buy guns? Obama's president, and they suddenly break records on gun sales. You
what
know
if I?
who's really happy about that? The NRA. And you know why
Yes.
they're happy? Because all their executives are fucking
Oh
on
my
the
God, I
board
was just gonna go there. You know what?
of gun
I think that
manufacturers.
a big part of this is the Republican. What if I were to argue that Republicans aren't really pro Second Amendment? That
Well, they
I would argue that they are
profit.
pro profit of
Yeah,
Second Amendment only.
yeah.
They don't give a shit about you and me having personal protection,
No,
or
if they did
especially
that,
in black communities. Like we've seen how unfairly distributed that's been. You know
if
what I
they
mean?
actually
Rural
cared,
white communities, it's totally fine, but Chicago,
if they
people,
actually cared, then they would have a legitimate good faith argument,
yeah,
and they
they don't.
don't. They don't care. They care about profit. I'm sorry, it's
And the
true.
NRA benefits a lot from those profits, and I agree
They're
with you. I
fucking
think that
getting rich.
that's huge, major
They
money.
loved it when Obama was
So
elected
I would
twice.
also argue that maybe the NRA doesn't have any benefit of it. Maybe what if there's some sort of, just kind of common understanding that they're going to keep that tension back and forth because it makes more money than eliminating it
They're
entirely.
going to
Unfortunately,
continue.
people die.
They're going to, yeah. Unfortunately, there's blood on that fucking money that they cashed in.
Oh no.
After Sandy Hook, do you know there were tons of gun laws passed? You know what these gun laws did by and large? The majority of them loosened restrictions on
Yeah,
guns. So
right.
there's a mass shooting, and guess what? They benefit because people go out and they buy the gun that they think is going to now be limited, but when it never is. So I'm
Yeah.
sorry, there's fucking blood on these people's hands. And I'm very kind to most folks, but the folks that are making money off of death, I'm sorry, there's a place in hell for you if there was a hell.
Yeah.
It's true.
So
It's
I
true.
mean, but I don't necessarily think that all, guns are being manufactured solely for people to kill each other with, but some
Sure.
of
And
them
I'm not
are,
saying let's get rid of all of them. But
yeah.
what I am saying is if you're actually going to approach this argument in good faith, there's a few facts you must recognize.
Yeah, for sure.
Because in America, right now, more guns to more people means more death. And if you don't think that's true, then you're living in a fiction.
In America, yes, I do believe that that's true. I don't think inherently as what I
Maybe
guess
not,
my argument would be as a
maybe not in
species
Finland.
inherently that we couldn't do it successfully. But I think you're absolutely 180% right, 190 million% right that in America we are way too dumb to ever be that responsible. We're not responsible enough. We're not
I
responsible. Like we're getting in accidents because we're eating cheeseburgers in a car, and then there's a bee in the car and they get startled and then they choke and then they drive into somebody and the child dies. Like
yeah.
that shit happens all the time because we're just idiots.
I only argue arguments that I can win.
Yeah.
And that means I don't ask for much.
Yeah.
Like the premise in which I argue is always very, very limited. Like
Yeah.
one of
Yeah.
the other famous arguments I would have is like that refugees are not a national security threat because they aren't, because the facts say that
Jesus,
they
who
aren't.
says that?
Oh, Trump ran on in 2016 and annoyed the fuck out of me
I
when he
didn't
said
know that.
refugees are coming here to kill us, which is fucking insane because there's no way that
Refugees
refugees.
are coming here to kill us.
Yeah, refugees are like a Trojan horse for ISIS, which is
Uh,
impossible because if you know anything about the process, it's absolute bullshit and it really pissed me off because you're demonizing the people that are suffering worse in the world to get
yes, I know.
elected.
And they're
When
trying
there's far
desperately to
more
get away from.
that will kill us.
Yeah.
So you know, I when I argue, I only argue things that I can win.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so I'm not arguing to take away the guns. I'm just arguing to be like, yo, more guns might kill more people. Like, can we
In the
just admit
United
that
States,
fact?
for sure.
And
I
more
agree.
guns kill more people. So
Yeah, I mean,
let's
my
just
my
start
my
with
only
that.
argument is that it's just it's not inherent for us as a species, but in the United States, it's a definite. Like,
Yeah,
there's
well,
we're not smart enough or responsible enough to have more weapons. More weapons means more
it's
death.
not like it's not like a gun is gonna shoot itself. Nobody is saying that. But
Yeah,
what we are saying is guns make it far more easy for people who are emotionally unstable and you know don't have the support they need to commit very quick moments that you can never take back, which is
yeah,
either that you kill yourself or you kill others. And if you were to
yeah.
take
It's
away that
awful.
ease, more people would be alive. I
Yeah,
know. I'd probably fucking shot myself 10 years ago if I had a gun, you know, because I'm
yeah.
emotionally unstable. So,
That's
like, you know, I don't have one
yeah.
because I
That's
know that I don't have the fucking, you know, mental health to do it. And
right,
like, so
right.
this is what I'm saying. You do not want, you need to argue, you need to come to an argument in good faith. And in good faith, you understand that a gun does make it far easier for people to die. And specifically in this country where we have a mass mental health epidemic, more guns is
Big
going to mean
time.
more people are going to die.
No,
So,
I would not argue against that at all. I think that's part of the reason why it is a big set. The issue of guns is exacerbated, and why it doesn't necessarily work anymore in the United States because of the lack of education, the lack of understanding, but also the mental health system is so broken that
yeah,
people are so much more likely to hurt themselves or other people because we're not addressing the mental health things. But at the same
yeah.
time,
I
um,
consent to the critique that Democrats don't talk about mental health enough. But who is far more guilty with spreading misinformation in this fight is the folks who incentivize more guns being sold and who are
yeah,
spreading that message. So they are more disingenuously engaging this argument because it's in their best interest, their fucking bottom dollar, if more guns are sold. So yes, Democrats fucking suck at talking about it, but they are at least are not openly lying.
so
More
if
money.
regular Americans should have, this amount of training to own weapons like they should with a car, I mean, which doesn't seem unreasonable.
Yeah,
I think
which
the
is
cops should also be forced to have that type of training, and they
yeah,
don't. So let's face that too. That as other people, I know me and you would probably agree on this. Other people out there listening, like pro blue line here. No, 20% of their jobs should be training. That
yeah.
would
I mean,
solve
they
the
get trained
problem.
for several months, and you know, in Norway where there's like no crime, they get trained for like 2 years. I'm not somebody who demonizes the police, but I will say the idea of a thin blue line of police officers separating humanity from chaos is bullshit. It's bullshit.
I didn't
Humans
know that
are
that's
not
what that meant.
inherently. What's
Holy
that?
shit. I didn't know that that's what that meant until
Yeah.
just now.
It's not inherently, humans are not inherently violent. The fact is, we are inherently cooperative. I know you want to glorify your role, and it is a hard job, and I couldn't do it, but you are not protecting society from collapse. And you glorifying yourself in that way, I think, is
Unhealthy and
problematic.
unsafe.
It's problematic because
So let me
it,
ask you this. You
yeah,
think that human beings are inherently not violent and terrible, awful people?
I mean, it's a fact. People who have studied this, we used to think
Like in
that,
a percentage, like there's more good people than there are bad people?
oh yeah, oh yeah,
Okay.
it's a fact. I mean, it's people have studied this
I
undeniably come
I have no
down.
idea about this. This is interesting to
Well,
me because I've
you
always
don't.
assumed it was like 50-50, like it's the
So
force,
so
dark versus light.
if you read like the super influential book *Sapiens*, for example, and recent sociological findings, the reasons why we're the top of the food chain is not because we're brilliant, not because we're the strongest, although we do have some physical attributes that make us
But
kind
because of our community, because of
it's
our
because of our community. It's because of our ability to cooperate.
that makes
So
sense.
there were Neanderthals that were far smarter than us, but what they didn't do is they did not share their findings and pass on their knowledge. So what we do better than everybody else is we cooperate. And why we like slowly took over Earth as like the dominant human species, because there were other human species. Neanderthals are a species of human, Homo sapiens. We're Homo sapiens, they were Homo whatever. And there was like Homo erectus. There were plenty of other species like there are species of dogs. Is why we won is because of our ability to gather and cooperate in groups larger than like 140. Like we could gather and cooperate in groups of like thousands and thousands and thousands. And that's super unique, like on Earth. Like what makes us special is we're naturally want to be good to each other because we want to form groups and cooperate.
So do you think that it's inevitable
But
that we're going to kind of unify? I mean, don't you think that would make the whole convergence with artificial intelligence, like biological entities with artificial intelligence and
I had never heard
nanotechnology?
that theory until you mentioned it, Mark, and I really like it.
Yeah, I mean,
So
hopeful. This
yeah,
is an
no, I think
optimistic
it's quite
outlook.
quite hopeful. But the problem is like we're kind of like, the Facebook's motto was "Go fast and break things," and like we're kind of doing that as a species. We're like going fast and breaking things. So it's more like we're making artificial intelligence leaps and bounds without thinking about the consequences. We're just doing it because we can without thinking about if we should or how we should.
It's just like that
So my
park,
worry is,
that quote from Jurassic Park. It's like
yeah,
you're so busy thinking about whether you could, you didn't think
and
about whether
we
you should or whatever.
exactly, and that's so true today with artificial intelligence. So we could do all sorts of stuff, but we're also only going to be able to do the good things if we do it in a very methodical and careful way. Um, but that
A lot
would
of
be great.
people that think that artificial intelligence is impossible, and it's fiction. But
Yeah,
now I think they're wrong. And I
I,
actually think there's math to prove that it's almost guaranteed.
yeah, I think you're wrong just because I hear that more experts in artificial intelligence think it's very possible than those who think it's impossible. So I'm just, again, I listen to the experts, and more of the experts are
Yeah,
saying,
but don't you think that they'd be
oh,
biased because they're experts? I'm only
look,
arguing
they're
that I
experts who
agree with you, just for the record.
experts, they're experts in artificial intelligence who also don't think it's going to happen, but there are fewer of
Really?
them who think it's not going to happen. Yeah,
No shit,
that
I didn't.
singularity isn't going to happen.
Okay.
Singularity is the moment in which a robot realizes itself.
Yeah.
It's conscious.
Or the other arguments was the convergence precipice that people are saying is that the convergence between us and technology would happen before the realization of technology, and that we
Yeah,
would
I mean,
actually charge that.
that would be cool. I'm okay with that. I've never
So,
heard
but also the
do it.
possibility that could happen the other way, and it would be unbeneficial. We try to do that, and we just imprint on it, and we also imprint malice and everything, you know.
Yeah, I think by and large, if you were to take human behavior innately inside an individual and imprint that on a machine, the machine would end up being good. Because I think most of us are good. None of us want the world to fucking fall apart, but it might. But that's because of, you know, mass, um, mass sort of societal, you know, tidal waves, which we're not very good at organizing. Although we are, if we're motivated. So, you know, I loved what's the fucking Watchmen, right? The comic. And what the villain does in Watchmen is he has like a mass death attack happen all over the world in different cities, so
Yeah,
that yeah,
Mandis.
Ozymandias, so people can bound together to fight a common threat. So, like, if something horrible happens, I think something truly horrible, there's a good chance that humanity will come together. So it will move mass societal tidal wave in the right direction. But right now we aren't. We're going the opposite way. Even
Did
with Biden, we're still fucked.
let me
Probably.
let me let me ask you this question. That guy you were talking about that had the different scenarios in which we would not
Toby.
survive. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Did he say anything about extraterrestrials?
Oh yeah, it was on his consideration, but
Really?
I
Not
think
on the
it's
list.
I think the percentage is very, very low.
Of
Not
course
that he
he'd say
didn't
that.
think life can
Well,
exist, but that the chances. So what I hear from the experts is that the chances of life existing is high, but the chances of life existing and being intelligent
the
and
Drake
being
equation. Yeah.
close enough to us and existing at the same time period that we're existing
But
is
also, wait,
a
wait.
real long
But
shot.
also not killing itself off first before it can make contact with another species.
Yeah.
That's another facet. Yeah, no, that's a Drake equation, I
Oh, is
think.
it?
I
Yeah.
don't know this for sure. So I'm not gonna. I could be very wrong, but other people can correct the in the comments because we have those now that we're on YouTube. We have comments down below. This is great. So like the video, folks. Please, for the love of God, like the video. No, I'm just kidding. We appreciate it. I mean, YouTube's kind of picked up a little bit. We're super new to YouTube.
That's cool. Yeah, I'll
Um,
share it.
what was it saying? What were we talking about?
Oh, talk about extraterrestrials.
Extraterrestrials. And what were we talking
You got
about?
that monolith being moved around the world right now.
Dude, yeah, what's up with it? It was moved?
Yeah, so it was in Utah, and then
Mm-hmm.
another one appeared in Romania. Then
Okay.
the one in Utah disappeared, and now the one in Romania has disappeared. Cool, right? I think it's just people.
Yeah, it had rivets in it, so
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
like human made rivets.
I just think it's fun. Whoever's doing it,
I
good
do
on.
too, but I want to know how they're getting it and getting it to stay in the ground, you know?
Yeah, I don't
Um,
know. I don't know. I like a mystery.
we were talking about aliens, and I went on a little tangent there about YouTube, but about the comments down below. What was I saying about in the comments? People can correct me
Yeah, they can
about
correct us about the Drake equation.
the Drake equation. Yeah, there's another variable I think too, in which not it's not the Drake equation. I think the Drake equation is that um, we kill ourselves off first before we make contact
Mm,
with another species. But then there's another one where it's like we're like Christmas tree lights and we blink at different times. You know, you have the
exactly.
intermittent
Yeah,
times, and while it's on, like we have to be able to make contact with that species at the same time, you know.
exactly. Yeah. I mean, the
So
chances are low. It'd be
yeah,
cool.
bridging light
It,
speed and all, you know, like radio waves have to travel through time
yeah.
and space. So by the time it reaches us, it could also be gone.
Yeah. What else you got before I peace out here?
Um, you know, I think the big thing that I wanted to talk to you about, just because I always do this with every person, we were just kind of talking about it a little bit. The listeners are probably like, "Oh, here it comes." UFOs recently, the stuff in the
Oh, this is one of your things. I didn't know that.
It's just been something. It's kind of a thing that I've been asking for a while now to people since certainly since the pandemic, because that was when the big reveal was all over the news. Even though it had been in the news for a while before that, the Pentagon
Mhm.
had been dealing with these encounters with unidentified aerial phenomena.
Uh,
Um, and have you seen the podcast with Jeremy Corbell and David Fravor? I think his name, Commander Fravor,
no,
on Joe Rogan's podcast.
oh, is this the guy that said he worked at Area 51?
Nope, that's Bob Lazar
Okay.
and Jeremy Corbell actually. So Jeremy Corbell was on there with Bob Lazar, and he, the guy who quote allegedly worked at Area 51.
Mhm.
You get into that, there's some actually. He sounds less and less crazy now, which is crazy because I was a pretty hard skeptic. Uh, this one is an encounter. The Navy pilot and another four Navy pilots had an encounter with a craft that that was on the news there, where it was moving quickly, and then the radar catches it, and the guys like, oh, they caught it. Have you seen that video?
Yeah, I have. I mean,
So what I challenge you to do is, just if you get a chance, listen to the podcast with Joe Rogan and Commander Fravor,
okay.
because
Send it.
this guy's legitimate. Like
Yeah,
the
I mean,
story is corroborated by the
I
U.S.
like
government.
listening to this stuff. I'm like, there are some things I'm like a skeptic on everything, but
Yeah.
like, I'm quite open to aliens having contact with us. Like, that's
Well,
cool. That's great. I think it's a low chance, but
well,
whatever.
I don't think that we're at aliens yet. I think we're still at
What could have
unidentified
been unidentified
aerial
phenomena?
phenomena. We know
Yeah.
that it's not any of the countries on the planet for sure. It defies physics entirely. The way that they were able to track it on radar, they've come to the conclusion that it defies physics, conventional physics as we know it as a species. Matter of fact, Marco Rubio was saying these crafts, they're discussing it in Congress, like I think a month from now or something. There was
Oh,
some
cool.
discussion about it because now they're concerned because these crafts are hanging out above military installations,
Huh.
and it's general knowledge now. But the big thing is that they move erratically, like
Yeah.
and if
They,
you watch that
they,
video yeah, and then
yeah.
just out of the atmosphere,
Yeah.
um, and that they've got video audio, I mean video, radar evidence, corroborated evidence between four pilots and then people in the towers there. I just think that those become the more credible people, and I think only because they were forced to be credible because of the Freedom of Information Act.
Yeah. I mean,
That's how all this stuff
I
came to
in
light so
general
far.
love the idea of things existing on this planet that we don't know where they came from or how it works. Like, that's exciting to me. Like,
Me
I
too.
want to know the story behind it. You know?
Why aren't more people like I know Congress is going to talk, but it's like everything, it's slow moving. It's fucking ridiculous. This is probably the biggest implication possibly ever, because we know it's not us, we know it's not other people. These crafts move beyond physics as we understand it, and they were able to pick it up on the radar. So it blipped into existence, then blipped out of existence, and then blipped into existence again. The same craft, same thing, and then jammed our radar, which is an act of war, actually. And no other country would do that with the United States. It actively jammed their radar. So doing that, they're like, well, what is this thing? They investigate it. Anyway, so you should watch the podcast itself. The
I'll watch
conversation
it.
changed my mind.
Yeah, no, I'll watch it. All right, cool.
Fascinating. Well, I gonna put it in the you know what? I'm not going to put it in the comments for listeners, because pretty soon Rogan's going to Spotify and you're going to have to find it there, and I don't know what that link's going to be.
Okay.
So I don't want to, people are going to be like, what the hell?
Yeah.
As far as I
Being
know,
able to
but
find it.
it's easy to find. David
Yeah.
Fravor, I think, is his name. I know Fravor is his last name, Commander Fravor. Anyway, this is something that I think like what we're talking about right now, people should be more like talking about, is it us from the future? Is it AI? Is it a construct? Is it
Sounds like a
aliens? Who
perfect
knows?
2020 topic.
Yeah. Yeah. And what do you know? We'll find out right before the end of the year.
Oh, good. One more month for disaster.
I know what can happen. No, I'm serious. I'm kidding. I'm so kidding.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
On that note, we are going to end the show. And I really, really appreciate you coming on. This is a really great conversation today.
My pleasure.
We really, I could spend hours more talking to you about this stuff for
Yeah,
sure.
we should do it again.
We should definitely do this again, and hopefully next time, Justin will be here because he would totally dig right in these conversations. He's not
Oh,
as
cool.
into politics, but he likes to talk about it because he's still learning about it. He just likes to genuinely find out more information, and that's his
Cool.
position usually.
I could
So
scat politics all fucking day, unfortunately.
yeah, I know my friends hate it, and I could do the same thing. So we should get together sometime soon too,
Good.
and when once COVID is
Things never get back to normal.
yeah normal. Fingers
Yeah,
fingers crossed though.
yeah, yeah.
Fingers crossed. I'm hoping. I appreciate you coming on, and all the listeners out there. Still working on, getting things kind of set up. With the comment feed. I know there's a couple of complaints on. I think it might have been Stitcher. I don't remember. I've got to look at the thing, but there was a complaint about the comment feed. Working on it. Anyway, thank you guys for listening. As always, be nice to each other. Less division, guys. Start talking to each other more. Right? That's the.
I agree
We can all
100%.
agree.
Good.
The more of this stuff,
Most people
having
are good.
conversations solves so much.
Yeah.
So love each other and all that hippy dippy bullshit. As always, love you guys. Abstract here, abstract there.
Abstract transmissions.